Good morning, boys and girls, and happy Sabbath. I am so excited to be here with you for another Nature Nugget. And this week's Nature Nugget animal I am super excited about, and I can't wait to share with you. So let's jump in and learn about another one of God's amazing creatures. So the clues for this week's Nature Nugget animal was clue number 1. They can find their nest from 1,300 miles away. And clue number 2, they saved thousands of lives during World War I and II. Let's think about it. What bird could this be? That's right. This week's Nature Nugget animal is all about pigeons. Our memory verse for this week is, "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts and be thankful." Colossians 3:15. Pigeons and doves belong to the same bird family. There are several references to them in the Bible. Noah sent out a dove, probably knowing that it would come back, because doves and pigeons have an amazing sense to be able to navigate their way home. Remember how, after a few days, the dove flew back with an olive twig in its mouth? And since then, the dove and the olive branch have become symbols of peace. In the 5th century before Jesus' birth, the Syrians and the Persians used pigeons to send important messages. There was an ancient engraving on these pigeons in their buildings, and throughout history, people have used carrier or homing pigeons to send messages, right up to our great-grandparents' time. Armies have used animals to help them in their battles, and we have seen many paintings of soldiers on horses. But did you know that armies relied on homing pigeons too? They don't use them today because we have all kinds of ways to send messages via telecommunication. There's a story of a very famous homing pigeon from the First World War that saved just under 200 American soldiers in 1918. 500 American soldiers were stranded in the Battle of Argonne. Many had been killed by the enemy, and even worse, they were being attacked by their friends or allies who thought they were the enemy. It was a desperate situation, and the soldiers were without food. They had run out of bullets for their guns. All they had were the 3 homing pigeons. They decided to send one out to their allies for help. It was a shot. They sent the second one out. It was a shot too. Only the third one, which they called Cher-ami, which in French means dear friend. They loved Cher-ami, but they had no choice but to send her off now. They tied the message to one of her legs. The note gave the coordinates indicating where they were, told the other battalion that their friends were firing at them, and begged them to stop. Cher-ami lifted off on her way. She was shot at by the enemy as she flew over their line. Despite her wounds, she flew the 25 miles in 25 minutes to the soldiers who needed to stop firing at them. The soldiers couldn't believe her bravery when they saw the blood on her feathers, the bullet in her chest, and her blinded eye, and only one leg. With all those injuries, Cher-ami had saved the rest of the battalion. They were rescued a few days later. The medics in the battalion nursed Cher-ami and saved her life. Cher-ami was certainly a bird of peace. Jesus is referred to as the Prince of Peace, and he calls us to be channels of his peace wherever we are. All right, let's take a minute and we're going to learn about the passenger pigeon. The passenger pigeon has a small head, neck, and a long wedge-shaped tail. They grew to be about 1 foot long and weighed about 9 to 12 ounces. They typically had grayish or brown feathers with a red belly and black bill. The passenger pigeon was found abundantly across North America and were most commonly found in the east of the Rocky Mountains. In the winter months, they would migrate and spend their winters in such states as Arkansas, North Carolina, and the Gulf Coast. Their primary habitat was the eastern forests. The passenger pigeon was a very social bird. They lived in very large flocks and took part in communal feedings. In some cases, they would have hundreds of nests in one tree. The pigeons would live in the same group but would make new nesting grounds each year. The passenger pigeon would travel in extremely large flocks, which could be 1 mile wide and 300 miles long, and would contain over 3 billion birds. Sometimes the large flocks would contain up to 50% of all passenger pigeons in North America. The large number of passenger pigeons would attract many predators. Their most common predator was the hawk, which was also known as the great pigeon hawk. The passenger pigeon would change its diet depending on the season. Their summer diet includes grape, cherries, mulberries, and blueberries. In other months of the year, their diet includes beech nuts, acorns, and chestnuts. The passenger pigeon lived in large breeding colonies. The largest nesting colony observed was in Wisconsin in 1871, with over 130 million birds nesting. Their nests were made of grasses and small twigs and were made in a bowl-type shape. After mating, the female would lay 1 to 2 white eggs, which hatched after 14 days. After hatching, the chicks grew rapidly and were adult size within 15 days. All right, boys and girls, that wraps up another Nature Nugget. And remember, like the beautiful book Steps to Christ talks about, we can learn more about Jesus in nature. The green fields, the trees, the falling rain, all of it speaks to our heart and invites us to become acquainted with Jesus who made them all, including the very peaceful pigeon. All right, boys and girls, here are your clues for next week's Nature Nugget animal. Clue number 1, they have big eyes that help them to see in the ocean. And clue number 2, even though they live in an ocean, they have a beak. All right, good luck, and I can't wait to see you again next week for another Nature Nugget. Bye!